Hello, sunshine. Good morning, everybody. I hope you guys are having a beautiful Wednesday. Here in Atlanta, it's sunny, but freaking cold. So it's a little, misconception there. I walked outside and I was like, whoa, I should put more clothes on. But that is neither here nor there. I hope you're having a good day. Today, we have a wonderful guest on with me, Mr. Michael Davis, and he and I are going to talk all about hosting virtual events. It is something that is not going away. And if you are a person that is interested in also jumping on the hosting bandwagon because it looks fun, and it is, then this is a conversation for you to check out. So, hello, Michael. Welcome.
Hello, Amanda Mae Gray. It's good to be with you, my friend.
Thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
Now, I do take issue with one thing you said. Freaking cold in Atlanta is very relative.
Look, I'm from New England. I feel like I have the quality to say that.
I'm in Cincinnati, and I shouldn't complain because I'm sure Minnesota.
Right. I know. Or our friends
up in 29 this morning.
Ooh, it was 37.
Oh, you're getting close.
It was pretty cold. It was pretty cold. But it was like 80 last weekend. So
yeah.
We have the most bipolar weather here. It's a little obnoxious. People are like, "Oh, it's fine." I'm like, "Yeah, but it's like here and then there." And you're like, "Stop it."
Exactly.
Make up your mind. And Gerald, I feel like jinxed it. My man Gerald, in case anybody doesn't know who Gerald is, he was like, "Oh, it's gonna get cold again," and I was like, "Shut up! Don't do that."
You put it out there. You manifest your.
That's what I'm saying. I'm like, Gerald, what is wrong with you? We don't want the cold. Well, either way, you know what? I want to put us in the better view because I like this one better. I think it's nice we can see people. Did you know that you are the person who inspired me to get into hosting and saying yes to hosting different virtual events?
I did not, and that means a lot. I'm glad I did. Now, I hope you didn't think, if he can do it.
I mean, maybe a little. No, I'm just kidding.
It's okay.
No, not at all. If anybody doesn't know, Michael is part of Stage Time University, as well as some other things, but that's where I was introduced to him and where we have a weekly call and he gets to host it. And I was like, that looks like fun. I feel like there might be a market for that. And so we kind of talked about it, and I've been watching him do it for, it's almost been a year. Mm-hmm. It's almost been a year. Yeah. And I figured, why not have him on? Because I'm seeing a lot of other people hosting and not really sure what to do. And I know I've picked up a few things doing it and watching that I think are key points. So if somebody is brand new, has never hosted, but they've spoke on camera, what do you think are some of the key attributes that are different from speaking versus hosting?
Well, when you're speaking to a live audience, the emphasis cannot be on you as the MC. You have to keep the event going. And that holds true, too, when you're hosting a virtual event. The biggest challenge, whether you're hosting or speaking, Amanda Mae, is that we've got to change the view, and we have to change it frequently. Because, people do not want to stare at that talking head all the time. They need to see videos. They need to be interactive. It has to be an interactive experience, which there are all kinds of tools you can use. We can get into as much as you want, but it's just keeping the pace moving along. And the speakers have to speak shorter lengths of time. There are some inherent differences. And our friend Darren, my dear friend and mentor for many years, taught me early on in the pandemic that virtual dulls the senses.
Yep.
Right. We can see each other. We can hear each other. But I know we joked about the temperature, but you don't know what it feels like in my room today, temperature wise. So you have to guess. You can't taste the tastes that are in my area, or you can't smell the smells. So our senses are so dulled. We have to incorporate as much visual stimulation and keep people engaged. That's the real challenge.
It is a challenge. I think a lot of people struggle with knowing how to keep people engaged, how to be not boring, how to change it up, how to, just get people involved even, because it's easier to make that connection when you're in person. You can directly look into one person's eyes and just make that connection. You can feel that connection, whereas virtually, we don't have that. Even when we're looking directly into the camera,
Right.
yes, it can feel like I'm talking to you, but it's still got a filter, I think is a good word for it.
Oh, absolutely. I'm looking at the camera now. I see you because of the split screen. I see you with my peripheral, but it's not quite the same.
Right.
I know
Definitely.
you're looking at me. You're not looking at Summit right now.
He's here
Sure, at some
though.
point you will. Right? But I mean, it is. It's
No, Siri, we didn't talk to you, honestly, sometimes.
you know, we some of us have been speaking for 20 years, others a long time, and we have been forced in almost a year now to the day to do it completely differently. And I've seen some seasoned, high-paid speakers really struggle with this new world.
Yeah, I think some of them even just rejected it and said, "Oh, it'll be over soon," and didn't want to adapt. But I hate to say it, for people that are like that, it's not going anywhere.
No.
And I don't think it should. Like, there is so much value in you in Cincinnati and me in Atlanta, and we can do something together like that. Like, there's so much more value in being able to do that, and the cost associated with it. Like, how are companies going to go away from this?
They're not. And I know the word hybrid's being used a lot, and that is what will happen. We are social creatures. We will have to be back together. We will do stage time live events one day again in person. But we have to be able to do this. And what people are going to demand, and there is a meeting planner named Jennifer Lear, who you're going to see at Stage Time's annual event here in a couple of weeks. She said, you've got to be good at both. You don't have a choice. If you want to succeed at a high level, and I'm not talking just speakers now. If you're in sales, if you're a leader, you've got to get good at both of these if you want to be at the top of the game.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It makes a huge difference. And I think the business professionals are the ones that are starting to see the value in it even more if they haven't been doing it. If they haven't been a Toastmaster and been forced to figure it out.
That's right.
Like the rest of us.
Yeah.
As far as hosting, you said, which is a key thing that one of my other mentors, when I started hosting, you might know him, Ron Chapman. He's an accredited speaker here in the only accredited speaker here in Georgia.
Georgia, okay.
Yes. But he was like, it's not about you.
Right. It's not.
And that is very hard to get over, especially when you are, well, people like us who are very much like, oh, this is a party. It's all about me. And to not talk about yourself, but to do short little quips or interludes that add to it, but don't distract the audience and pull it away from the people that you're announcing or introducing.
Right.
What do you think is the hardest thing there?
Well, the hardest thing is taking the spotlight off yourself. The hardest thing, though, you get good introductions. Like one of the people you know from Stage Time that's associated, Ford Sakes.
Yes.
Ford never lets me introduce him. And it's not because he doesn't trust me. It's because he has a standard video he uses. He doesn't let anybody introduce. That doesn't bother me at all. I'm there to make sure the situation is best for the audience and the speaker.
Yes.
You're going to deal with technology issues that often you don't deal with on live events. Darren and some of my other mentors early on taught me we are not paid, and sometimes good money, for when the situations are great. We're paid for when things go wrong, and they do go wrong when you're hosting. The key to getting good and comfortable at hosting is, number one, accepting there is something that's going to happen every single time. I've been hosting Stage Time calls now for 3.5 years, since 2017. Every single week something happens. Now, early on, I didn't handle it well because I was so concerned that, see, it's not my company, right? And I'm representing Darren in Stage Time, and I can't screw this up. He had to pull me aside one day virtually and say, get over that. Right. I don't care if you make mistakes. Now, try not to keep making the same ones. All right. Learn from them. And that's what it is. And I know we teach this in speaking all the time in storytelling. You got to get up there and kind of get bruised a little bit. You got to tell your story, give your speech, and know that it's not going to be the feedback you want. Right? There are always ways to improve. Same thing here. I mean, when I hosted the first webinar or the weekly call for Stage Time, which was my first time working with Zoom, it was a disaster in my mind. I couldn't even turn the video on, the audio when I showed video. So we were showing videos with no sound. which kind of defeats the purpose of showing a speaking video. And I couldn't transition. I mean, nothing went right.
Oh.
And I called Darren and I thought, well, he's going to say, nice try. I'll get somebody else. And he laughed at me. He would do that. And he said,
surprise.
That sounds terrible. But guess what? It's not as bad as my first time. We'll do better next time. See,
love that.
Great mentors see things in us that we can't see. So the next week I got on and it was bad, but not quite as bad as the previous week. And he just kept pushing me in the deep end of the pool. And eventually the pool wasn't so deep. I got more comfortable. But, Zoom's always making updates and I miss things and he has to tell me or I tell him, and it's going to happen. Get over the mistakes, just learn from them. And just know that when there are technical issues, improv helps a lot. Mm-hmm. Right? I've gone through improv training. We do improv twice a month at stage time. That will help you stay in the moment and not flip out and just admit to people, hey, we got a technical glitch here. Talk amongst yourselves in the chat box. Do something. Just keep them engaged.
I think that's the key, is acknowledging when things go wrong, because everybody can see it, right?
Yeah,
it's not like we're in this little bubble that we can't see when something's not working, but just talking through it, acknowledging it, and even asking for help from your audience.
Yes.
Because we all have to be students of this platform. I know I've been on calls before and I'm not lead, but something happens. I'm like, oh, hey, do this. Mm-hmm. And being willing to be humble enough to be like, hey, does anybody know how to fix this issue and help me out?
They're not looking at you for perfection. They just want to know that you're going to keep things moving and you're not going to put the spotlight on you. Last week, we had something happen at stage 10 we'd never done before. I made an executive decision on the spot. Mark Brown and I were coaching, as we do every fourth Wednesday of the month. I had to leave literally for 15 minutes and come back. So on the spot, I said, Amanda Mae, you are now co-host.
I know. I was like,
no preparation, right? Well, you volunteered, but I
was vol-inspired, I feel.
I figured you would be the one to jump up first, and I was glad you did because I knew you could handle it. But grab every opportunity to host, co-host. And one of the most important aspects of hosting is do not do it by yourself, especially when you're new. There is nothing more overwhelming than looking at a chat box, making sure the right speaker's up. Do you have people pinned? Do you have them on gallery? Do you have the sound? I mean, all this is coming at you fast and furious. If you can just have somebody watch the chat box and let people into the meeting, that's a huge weight off your shoulders.
Yes, absolutely. That's something in our Toastmasters district that when we do workshops, we've implemented. You need a host in addition to you being the speaker, and you need a tech person is what we call it, because it isn't fair to anybody to try to be doing everything at once. And really, it's not going to be your best work if you're trying to watch the chat, let people in, and present information. Plus, it's not as interesting. Let's just be honest. I don't care how entertaining I am.
It's not good for the audience.
It's not good for the audience.
If you can do a few things really well, or you can do them all poorly. Which one's better for the audience, right? It's a pretty obvious answer. And I think when you have interplay between hosts like we're doing now, if we had a whole group of people and have guest speakers coming on, it's still better for them to hear both of us.
Especially for longer things. A 1 hour presentation is one thing, but if you're doing like a whole day summit or conference or whatever, you need that interaction also to give you some downtime. So you can just kind of sit back and listen and not have to, be the show 24/7. I think that makes a big difference.
Exactly. Another suggestion I'll make, simple. I like to stand when I present, when I host, even for all day events.
All day events, really?
I have a standing pad. Now I do keep a chair nearby. So when the camera goes dark, I might sit, but the standing pad made a big difference on my hips, my back, and my knees. I'm at that age, right? But it's not easy on anybody.
No, I would get tired too. Thank you very much.
It's about I'll show it to you because I think everybody should have this. If you're going to be doing a lot of online presenting for a while, like you said, in the future, we're going to do it.
Anywhere.
It's not just a flat pad. Here's what it looks like.
Oh.
Great about it is this is the front. You can stick your toes on there. You can arch your foot. You can stand on this. It gives you different angles and it puts different pressure points on your feet, which you desperately need when you're going to be standing in front of a camera for any time.
So you're getting me to spend money again. Remember we were talking about spending money?
Yeah, I pointed this out on a call recently. I am one of the best people in the world at spending other people's money. So
you got that.
I'll
I'm
send
giving
you a
you a
link to
wireless
this one,
mic.
and I'm not an affiliate, by the way. So it's like,
I know that's the worst part, right?
Yeah.
I was like doing a makeup thing yesterday about how to do makeup on camera, and I'm like, and this is this brand, and I'm like, why am I not getting paid for this? I was like, hey, Bare Minerals, if you need somebody, I got you.
That's right.
You know, but yes, I think that's important to invest in the things that make your life easier, which is the same with your space. Like you got to invest in a dedicated space so that when you get that call and they're like, hey, we need somebody in 5 minutes, can you come on? Or you're running late or whatever, you just turn on the camera, everything's in place, and you're good to go. And I think that's something that people are starting to embrace, but could embrace more even.
Absolutely. The studio you see behind me, it's 3 weeks old. I've got the Oralex on the side. I got the panels on the back, sound absorption. I've got this overhead. I mean, this is a 70s style basement behind all this. If you're part of Stage Time, some people have seen those pictures that Darren loves to show about my
He's
office.
so kind. So kind.
But you're right. It's ready now. It is professional quality. Is it super duper with all the huge TVs and all that? No, that's coming in the future. But it's incremental.
And that's a big difference is you have to start where you are and build yourself out. I've had the blue wall for a while, but I, got this little couch recently because Summit, my dog likes to be involved. If you can hear him chewing, I apologize. That's why we have a couch. I literally bought this couch so he could be on camera and not bugging the crap out of me because that's what he was doing beforehand. But it's been iterations. I just brought in, hold on, I'll put this big. I just changed out, I had like a smaller table and I just changed it out to this filing cabinet to get it a little bit higher so that if I need to put something on there and show it off on camera, I've got an option. Plus it's on wheels, so I can get it out of here.
No, see, I would have never guessed it's a filing cabinet.
I don't know if you guys can see it.
Look that you've got,
which is also fantastic because I have things like a remote in here, right? And I have a chapstick. I've got like a hair tie and all that, like pens, pencils, stuff that I might all of a sudden need. And it's at the ready and it's always there unless I move it. I'm trying not to move it. We got a couple comments. Let me put us back to this. Steve Cohen, one of our friends, he said, we are reimagining curriculum and technology and bringing thinking into the digital realm.
Yeah,
Indeed, we are.
Like I was going to networking events based on what Steve just said. I was going to networking events before COVID. And the year before, I was trying to convince people to go have these virtual meetings. Now, I don't think every meeting should be virtual.
Right.
Take COVID out of the picture. But it's a great time saver to get on a call with somebody for 20, 30 minutes and quickly determine, should we meet again or not?
Right.
And people push back. Oh, I could never do that. I can't do that. Well, starting March 11th of last year, sure you can. You found out in a hurry. And overnight we were forced to. And now I'm not saying we're embracing it, but we've gotten comfortable enough to say, yeah, this is wonderful. And I was doing some research last month. There are approximately 330 million Americans. It's our English is our language, right? Well, mentally, we were thinking we have to do business geographically. So forget the 330 for a minute. Just think about your own geographic area. Atlanta's got 5-10 million people.
A whole lot.
In my area, there's 2 million. Virtually anywhere in the state you live, there's probably 2 million people in an area that you could do business with physically. There are 1.5 billion people who speak English. Now, I know you're not going to do business with most of them. But that's a huge number that you can now work with.
I agree.
Of this technology.
I agree. Even for Toastmasters, right? For our districts, we did our TLI virtual, of course. And I don't see us necessarily going back 100% because it was so much easier to bring everybody together. There was no driving, no parking, no, all of that shenanigans that goes into it. Poor people who live, that doesn't sound right, not poor people. People who live like an hour or two away from wherever the meeting was. That's what I mean by poor. They would have to
unfortunate souls.
That's it. Unfortunate. They would have to get up so early and drive to that meeting, and it would turn into an all-day affair when instead they could roll out of bed, put a shirt on that's presentable, right? Like have their dog hanging out with them wherever. Hey, come here. Come on. Come say hi to everybody, would you? Since I keep talking about your knucklehead. No, you're not going to do it? Okay.
No, it's on his time.
Of course. Well, yes. He's very much like a cat like that. Ellie says hi. Hi, Ellie.
Hi, Ellie.
Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it.
I had a day not long ago, and this isn't unusual anymore, where I calculated roughly 20,862 miles is how much I traveled in an 8-hour and 45-minute period.
Whoa.
Started my day in Japan doing a coaching call. Then I came home to the States here in the Midwest. Then I went to Canada. I went to California, to North Carolina, Florida, Georgia, back to Canada,
Georgia.
back home.
That's amazing. And you couldn't do that before, and people weren't willing to embrace that as much.
Weren't. And now they love it.
Yeah. Now they're like, oh, this is fantastic. Yeah. And we're like, yeah, it is. It's not going anywhere. So let's learn it. Ellie wanted to know what our theme was for today, because we, probably have wandered around all sorts of different topics. But our theme was how to be a better virtual host or facilitator. So I guess we could come back to that.
Well, here, I'll give you the real down and dirty. It's like speaking and storytelling. Do it.
Right.
Quit trying to be perfect. And I think we've already touched on that. Just keep doing it and record yourself. What I love about, and
then watch it back.
That's the key. I've had many clients say, "Oh, I recorded it. Great. Did you watch it?
Did you watch it? Did you see what happened? No? Okay.
Yeah, might as well not have recorded it."
Exactly.
Yeah. Go in there and watch. I audit the weekly calls for Stage Time. I've developed a bad habit again.
Uh-oh.
In between thoughts. I counted several, and I'm like, what are you doing? I'm not one of these who obsesses on the account, but there were too many. So
right.
It is a great way to correct your own bad habits.
And just see how things are looking, right?
Yes. More importantly, how does it look? Do I look professional? Do I feel conversational? When a lot of times when there are technology glitches, you feel in the moment like, oh my gosh, everybody's noticing, they're going to check out. It's like pausing and speaking. When you watch the video, it's like, well, that didn't last that long.
It wasn't that bad.
In fact, it felt like a really good pause.
Right.
I shouldn't.
Was it intentional?
Try not to mention a glitch unless it becomes glaringly obvious to everyone.
Exactly.
It's like pausing. You feel like that pause is taking a minute or two, and it's actually taking a second or two.
It's not as long as you think. That's for sure. And it's abundantly clear when, stop chewing this. That was the dog. Okay. When you actually watch it back. I think that's one of the biggest things is that we're like, so we get so much energy. We're just like, go. And breathe. People have to digest that information just like they have to digest it during a speech. Also in hosting, you have to do the same thing.
Exactly.
And that can make a big difference.
They're forgiving. They'll let things happen. The other tip I'll give is do not try to change 10 aspects of your hosting in the next call.
Right.
Doesn't work.
Right.
We're not looking for 100% improvement on every aspect. I read this about the military lately. The military, when they go into any kind of situation, says we need 80% of the information. And we're going. I love that strategy because if you wait for all the information or wait to get it 100% correct, you're never going to progress because it never happens.
Right.
Get really good at transitioning between slides. Then move on to the next challenge. Figure out how do I smoothly get into showing that next video. One piece at a time, just like you would a story or a speech.
Absolutely. I love that concept. The other thing I will say when it comes to like introducing people,
Mhm.
just like anything else, less is more. You don't want to ramble on. And if somebody has given you an introduction that is just like, okay, this is aggressive, just be straightforward with them and say, for the sake of time, we're going to shorten this down a little bit. And you have to be the judge to say what is important and what isn't important in that introduction. We don't need to know 10 million accolades that they have. What we need to know is, why do I want to listen to this person?
Yeah.
Short and sweet is key, which is also key for your hosting in general. Is like, you want to keep it short and sweet, to the point, and get that speaker on. Keep that ball rolling without just talking your way out of interest.
Yeah, and if you get stuck, I agree with the introduction. In fact, maybe I've done it enough now, I have more confidence than maybe a newcomer would, but you're perfectly fine to say to the speaker, this is too long.
Mm-hmm.
And secondly, what's the benefit the audience is going to get?
Right.
I had something, to me, it was horrific. 2 weeks ago happened. I was giving a presentation for a group and they introduced me. They didn't get the introduction I sent. So they'd gone on my website, read my bio, and I was horrified because I don't care about all that stuff.
Right.
And I did it. That's not what the audience wants. They want to know, what am I going to get? So I had to, on the fly, change my introduction to a big promise type. Okay, here's what you're going to get out of today.
Right.
Rather than just jump into the story I like to start with. But yeah, make sure it should be a paragraph.
Yeah. And even bullet pointed out for the person who is reading it. That way it's just, you keep yourself moving. Because I think if you were to print off a paragraph, that could be a little difficult to keep track of. So like if you're reading a paragraph, that can get a little monotone. If you can take those sentences and bullet them out, then they can just be short and concise. And if you need to move it on, move it on.
Well, I will tell you, from the live speaking world and virtually, it doesn't take a lot of work to stand out as a host or an introducer. Because for most people, they're given this job at the last minute. It's not what they do for a living. And it's like, hey, Bob, read this.
Right.
Amanda Mae Gray is it Gray? Is it May or is it May?
And you're like, okay.
It's not hard. Just show the speaker that you care enough about that person, that you got their name. That's a big thing. Make sure you've got the name correct. All right, Michael Davis, pretty hard to mess up. Darren LaCroix, I've heard it, sir. Darren LaCroix.
Ooh, yeah.
Show any speaker enough respect to say, I care enough to ask, how do you pronounce your name?
It's huge. It's
Write
huge.
it out phonetically.
And people get really offended. And then what happens is, if you do it incorrectly, then they have to repeat their own name correctly. And that can get awkward. And then they're set off on a different way instead of actually just being in a good frame of mind. Right. So it is very important to do that.
In and of itself, it's not a big deal. But it's these little pieces that when they start to go wrong or look bad, when they start to add up, just doesn't make for a good experience for the audience.
Exactly. Yeah. That's huge. Another thing when it comes to virtual that I think I have learned is really key for maybe some of the smaller events. And this might be something that is a total another person's job, but is to be listening to the speaker and being active in the chat to highlight key points that they say, which is good for your audience. And it's also good for the speaker, because sometimes we speak and we're just talking and we don't realize that a certain phrase is so impactful or so important, because we're just we just say it all the time. Yep. So that is something I found, which is definitely different than in person, to be very helpful, is highlighting, monitoring the chat, and making sure that you're also, this is a key too, make sure you have an idea what your speaker is talking about before you go live. Have a pre-event meeting so you're on the same page, because people will assume that because you're the host and because you're monitoring the chat, that you know what is going on and what the speaker is talking about. And you're like, I have no idea either.
Yeah, you did that really well last week, by the way, is to take those key ideas, but we call those keepers. and we will clue sometimes on coaching call. It's okay. I've got 2 dogs. I know what it's like. They've got to be on the call. You can put that in the chat box. If it's in a coaching call, we call it out and say, there's a keeper for you.
Yes.
Can't do that with the speaker, but just right there, keeper. And if you think it's a keeper, put it in there.
Somebody else will too.
You can even challenge the audience while the person's speaking, saying, now what action could you take from that keeper?
Ooh, I like that. That's getting the audience involved.
Because it's the same concept as recording your video, but never watching it. If you get a great idea and do nothing with it, you've just got more knowledge. Who cares?
Right. We don't
need more knowledge. We need more action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think that's huge, is having those action items in addition to those keepers. How are you going to take this information? That
just inspired. I'm going to start challenging our audiences, whether it's my own business or stage time, to say, how are you going to use this?
It's
we're
brilliant.
not doing enough of that.
No, we're not, because we hear a lot of information. And I think it can be overload. And so this is a good way to internalize. Right. And if you're a member of an audience and you want to be a good host, or you just want to practice this, totally step up. And what I like to do is type in the exact quote that I thought was helpful. And people love that.
Yeah.
And then you remember it more as well.
Right. Because on a good quote, it never fails if there are more than 20 people in the gallery. One of them will put, can he repeat that?
Right.
That was really good. No, he's moved on, but that's why we have to listen. And listening is one of the most important skills you have as a host. It's exhausting too.
Cindy goes, who cares if we have more information? We need action.
Cindy from Indy. Yes, we need action.
Like it, Cindy.
Action, people. But it just challenge your audience. What are you going to do with this?
I like that.
I
like that a lot.
I'll go into the speaker part for a moment. We have an obligation to give them our perspective, our stories, our experiences to help make their lives easier. But we also, I think, have an obligation to challenge them. So what are you going to do with it?
How is it going to help you in the future?
And as a host, you can do the same thing. You can help your speakers out by asking those questions.
Yes, definitely.
But the key is you just got to do it.
You got to do it. You got to start.
Yeah.
And if you are in Toastmasters, it is a great place to learn it.
Oh yeah,
it is.
Great laboratory.
You can be your Toastmaster. The Toastmaster of the day is a great practice. That was one of my other mentors. I have so many mentors. I feel like they were like, just utilize the Toastmaster a day as if it was hosting an event. So don't treat it like your normal thing. Treat it a little bit more. Treat it a little special. Put on that show, so to speak, and practice that way. How can you utilize it?
Oh, absolutely. I'll tell you, Amanda Mae, about 8 years ago, I started being asked to MC events for organizations in our city. And I'll never forget the first one. I went there and probably 10 minutes before the event, the organizer started flipping out. The reason being is because they had this scripted event. And the keynote speaker decided at the last minute he was going to go longer than they had allotted time. And it screwed up their whole, in their minds, their agenda.
Right.
Well, I'm sitting there and somebody else is running late. And I'm looking at this thinking, okay, we can do this, this, and this. And it was not because there's anything special about me. It's because for the previous, 15 years, I had been a Toastmaster of countless meetings where everything goes wrong, right? People don't show up. You need to fill roles.
Right.
We don't realize as Toastmasters the skill that we have developed as the Toastmaster of the day to handle last minute freakouts by groups, because everybody around me felt like a hurricane going around. Everyone's flipping out. I'm like, oh, what if we did this? And I showed them and they're like, oh yeah, that's really good. Let's do that.
And you looked like the star, and you were like,
it's right. It's because of Toastmasters and the fact that I had emceed so many of their events.
Right.
Didn't know the training I was getting. The same thing helped when COVID hit. I didn't understand, and Darren couldn't have either. Back in 2017, when he asked me to start hosting the weekly calls, he was getting ready for COVID. Right? Because when the world was like a hurricane all around me, I'm like, yeah, we've done these for years.
Right. No big deal.
Right? You become the go-to person. Just like what's been happening with you, and you and I were talking about this before the call today started, is that people are coming to you because you have such a fantastic setup. Well, you need to turn that into a business. All right, I'm gonna hammer you on that one. But most people, as we see on these calls, and I see it in my daily business, they don't have that look. And maybe some people don't want it. That's fine. I'm not criticizing that. But if you want to be a professional speaker and have both work in both of these areas, you got to have something behind you that looks professional.
Yeah. And it's an evolution too, right? Like this was not the first thing I did. I tested. I mean, honestly, if you go back on my YouTube channel, the first few videos was like me sitting in my bedroom in front of the bed. And I was just like, well, let's make sure it's clean, right? Like make the bed. And then it evolved to me in front of a shelf. And I was like, not feeling it. Then I did a bigger shelf. And then I removed the shelf altogether and used that as my computer stand. Then I was like, I'm blending into this wall too much. I am super, super creamy white, and this is just not working. And I don't even know how I ended up with the blue wall. And now it's like a thing, and everybody else is like, oh, I want a blue wall. I'm like, okay, it's easy, actually.
Now, everybody's going to copy you, and everybody's going to have a blue wall, right?
I know. My specialness is going to disappear. There you go.
No, but it's like a story. We often say that a message is a mess with age. Don't worry. I have some awful looking YouTube videos from 2013. I mean, it looks like witness protection. It's that close. But see, I was following the mantra of my mentors, Darren being number one, who when they said, you can't get to your second version if you don't do your first.
Which is true.
So I took that to the video world.
Right.
I'm kind of embarrassed, but I'm not anymore because that's where I started. And people who will critique you because, oh, your office looked like crap and your colors. Well, let's see what you've got up. Right?
That's huge. What
Most
do you
people
have?
Don't have anything up. So if you've got anything out there, kudos to you because you got it going.
Because you're trying.
Exactly. Incremental increase. Just like the people who will criticize you for your speech or story who've never given one.
Right.
Ignore them. I'm telling you flat, just ignore them because they're not, as the quote from Teddy Roosevelt, they're not in the arena getting beaten and bloodied. You are. Give yourself credit for that.
That's huge. And I think that's a good point is like, we're constantly innovating. We're constantly, working on it. We're constantly trying new things, testing things out. And that's the key is testing, being willing to test it out. If it doesn't work, great. When I first started doing these Facebook Live, say that like this isn't what we're doing currently. I was not happy with the way it was looking. And I kept messing with the audio and I kept trying on my phone versus my computer in different rooms going outside. Like I was trying everything. And then I was introduced to this program StreamYard and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. There's so many fun toys and it looks so much better. And now I'm not the only one using it, right? So it's that innovation, but also being within a community that is right there with you and working to improve, has that same mindset of, I want to get better and I want to help other people. Because when we help other people who are trying to do the same thing, we get better ourselves. Right. And getting that feedback, this is huge that I learned from Stage Time, getting the feedback from people who are qualified to give you the feedback.
Yes. As our dear friend Darren says, everybody's qualified to tell you how they feel. That's fine. Not everybody's qualified to help you get better. I want the person, and I use this phrase over and over, who's been beaten and bloodied in the arena, who can say, here's why you shouldn't do this. Do it this way. Yeah, exactly. But just dive in, host, record yourself. One of the beauties of Zoom or what most platforms now, you can do this, record yourself and go watch it. I don't care if there's an audience.
Exactly.
See how did I transition between slides? Make up some introductions. Pull up some videos, pull up some pictures. It took me until about a month ago to effectively transition between slides and what we're doing here, FaceTime.
I mean, I keep playing with these camera views, right? Because
I like what you're doing because it's changing it up.
Right. And it's interesting. That's the key. Is like, if we were just sitting here by the whole time, that'd be fine. but I'm trying to utilize it. I'm messing with it. It's not perfect. And that's
No,
okay.
it's not going to. There's no pattern
It's
to
never
it,
going to be.
because our attention spans, and I don't buy the whole goldfish thing, but they are much shorter than they were.
I think I'm a
And
goldfish.
I tell you what really drove this home to me. I was watching a video on YouTube from the first Super Bowl, which is 1967. There was a play where a receiver went down the field, threw the pass, and missed the ball, right? He walked back to the huddle, and the camera followed him every step of the way, which was about 30 yards. It was a 24-second clip. We don't do anything in 2.4 seconds on video today, right? You watch a game, you watch a TV show, they're doing this. They're moving all the time.
Yes.
I don't think we should be changing every 2.4 seconds, but we do need to change it up. So what you're doing, I think, is keep practicing with that. And again, there's no rule book for it.
Yeah, just playing.
When you feel like it, switch it up, because that will capture our attention.
Absolutely. It's funny you say like they took 24 seconds to go through that. Sometimes when watching football, I get irritated because they don't let me see more. Right? So think about it that way. When you're watching TV or shows, when do you get irritated at things, and what are those things? Because then you cannot do them.
That's a good question. Yeah, that's a really good example. And say, I don't want to do that. You don't want to be changing too fast.
Exactly. Ellie says you're pushing all the buttons, like Darren says. I am always pushing buttons, Ellie. So there's that.
Amanda Mae Gray, professional button pusher.
Yes. You know what? It's funny because sometimes people are like, oh, you're so good at this or that. And I'm like, you want to know my secret? I read the directions. It's not, I read the directions and I push all the buttons. It's not, I'm not that crazy. I'm just good at following directions.
Well, and the other thing is, and some people said some very kind things to me about when I host, and I appreciate that. It came from repetition over and over. And then I also, on stage time, some of our members may not know this, I audit all the videos.
Mm.
So I get to go back and watch. That's why I caught myself saying during coaching calls, hey, Amanda, here's what you should do next. And I'm like, that's got to stop.
Right.
But sometimes you get into bad habits. Push the button, says Kathy. Hashtag.
It's our new hashtag. It's going to be our new trending hashtag.
In my home, I'm a real good button pusher.
The dog pushes my button sometimes. Hey, how's it going? Oh, that's so funny. We have talked for 42 minutes live. So there's that. I hope this was helpful for everybody out there. If you guys have any comments, questions, tips, because we are students too. If you are not a continual student, especially in this new world, you're not doing it right. So we are always looking for other ideas and tricks that we can also try, but feel free to ask any questions in the comments. If you're watching this on the replay, no problem. Ask the questions. I'll try to answer them for you, or I'll be like, hey, Michael, we have a question that I don't know the answer to, and I need some help. And I'll make him get more involved too. But I want to thank you for showing up today.
Oh, my pleasure. It's good. It was great to talk with you. I mean, we have so many terrific members in Stage Time, and you're one of those that just jumps in. And again, appreciate last week. And it did spot I can't think of the word I'm looking for. Spurred an idea that occasionally we are going to bring some members on to give you a chance to host with us, just to do some of the watching the chat box, and we're going to give some opportunities.
But start doing it at your Toastmasters Club.
There you go.
Because you probably are one if you're watching this.
So Cindy, Ellie, Steve, Kathy, good to see you all. I'm sure we'll see you at Stage Time. I know we're going to see Steve tonight.
Is he on tonight?
Amanda Mae.
I'm on tonight.
Yes.
If you don't know what Stage Time is, then you're missing a lot.
You miss a week, you missed a lot.
Mark, inside jokes. I was listening to their podcast and Mark said something hilarious and I was like, this is so funny. I have to say this in public, but nobody's going to know unless they listen to the podcast.
That's
I feel
right.
like we have all these inside jokes. I always get a little worried about new members. I'm like, don't get overwhelmed. We have all these inside jokes.
We try to explain. That's, you know what? That is a great point. As a host, you are going to, sometimes your speakers will have inside jokes, or they will make comments that are so outdated. I love Kevin Burke. He is a wealth of knowledge. Sometimes I got to say, Kevin, can you bring that into the modern day for our younger members? Because they have no clue what you're talking about.
This is why you guys have me. You guys are like, Amanda, do you know what that means? Remember one time he brought me in. He was like, Michael, can we bring Amanda on screen so I can ask her a question? You were like, okay. And I was like, turn on a light, turn on a camera. I was like, what are we doing? He's like, Amanda, did you get that reference? And I was like,
Nope.
No. He's like, okay, that's all I wanted. And I was like, you're killing me.
He brings out the greatest references that I had, because he and I are about the same age. I'm like, I think we need to bring that up because they may not know what that is.
And it's also cool because our community is, all around the world. So we get people who are like, honey, I have no idea what that was. Like, what? That is like a thing specific to you. And again, we're so close to our own message. We're so close to our own things that it is hard for us to realize that that's not common knowledge, or that is something that I have to explain or bring out.
Yeah, it's not just our message, it's our experiences. And a good host will catch that and say, wait a minute, for our audience because we've got people from Bangalore and we got people from Moscow, they may not know what are you referencing.
Exactly. And they want to know. They don't want to feel left out. Nobody wants to feel left out on the conversation just because you said.
And you're also helping your speakers.
Yes.
Because we all look, as speakers, we all get tunnel vision on our own lives. We've got to help them expand. And that's one way to do it without being, hey, dummy, what are you talking about?
I mean, you could try that, but I don't think it's going to go over well.
Could within our group, maybe.
Right. If you know the person, that might work, but it also might not.
No, might not. So, hey, man, this is great. I look forward to
Thank you.
Keep doing it, getting information out.
Thank you for coming. I appreciate it. We will see everybody in stage time tonight. Because, Michael, why will we see them tonight? Why do they want to come tonight?
Because it's Stage Time University. If you miss a week, if you miss a day, if you miss a minute, you miss a lot.
Thank you for everybody else who are watching who has no idea what we're talking about. We appreciate you coming this far along the journey. Have a wonderful Wednesday.
See ya.